So today I'm going to show you how to do the salvia, the blossoms and the leaves. As we saw on the YouTube video, salvia can have several different types of leaves. I'm going to show you how to paint leaves first. So this is a heart-shaped leaf. Okay. This one's elongated. And this one is just a leaf that we can paint similar to the heart-shaped leaf, and we're going to call this a one-stroke round leaf. Okay. So here's my paper. And I'm taking my small flow brush and I'm dipping it into water to clean it and dry my brush. Okay. And beforehand, I'm using watercolors. You can spray your colors with water to get them ready so that the colors will be uniform, or you can just take another brush and moisten each area. This is what I'm using is the small companion color set from Oriental Art Supply. Okay, and you can use the black here to darken, or you can use ink. I would recommend that if you're going to use ink to mix your colors, use ground ink, because liquid ink sometimes bleeds, and liquid ink doesn't give you the range of tones like ground ink does. Okay. And then I have handy a piece of paper toweling to help me blot my colors or blot my brush if I need to. Okay. So I'm going to paint with green, and because this is the first week of class, I'm not going to do what's called double loading. So everything will be just that one tone of green. Okay. So I have, as I said, pink companion colors. You can also use Japanese colors. These are called Gansai colors. You can get these also at Oriental Art Supply and other locations too. Okay. And this is called a flower bowl. This helps me with mixing and blending. Now, if you like to work with individual containers, you can get these plastic individual containers locally. I think you can get them at a place like Blick or Michael's. Okay. All right. So I've added a lot of color to my brush. And loaded up my brush real heavily with the color. Right. And then I'm going to take out any extra water, I said. So this is called the heel of the brush or the head of the brush. It's closer to the handle. You take out extra water so that it doesn't get bloated looking on my paper. Okay. And here's the tip. I'm going to use the tip of the brush to paint the stem. So again, this is the stem, right? Okay. So I always paint the stem like that. That helps me to know where to guide my brush to get the width of whatever I'm painting, whatever leaf. So this is a thin leaf and it's pointed at both ends here. Okay, some salvia, some sage have pointed leaves. So that's what we're going to do. And I hold my brush upright. We call this upright. It's vertical to the paper or perpendicular. Okay. And I hold it fairly close to the handle, the edge of the handle, so I can have good control. And I line up my brush into a little bit into that stem. This part can be used as a stroke for a vein after I'm done painting, right? I'm just going to press, and I'm going to use my tip to stay close to that line that I painted, and that's called a center brush. So I'm not going to bend my brush this way or that way. It's going to stay fairly upright. So that gives me the right side of the leaf. Okay, now I'm going to go back in and paint the left side of the leaf, and I do that with holding my brush this way, and that's a little harder for beginners to be able to do this. So beginners, you can just turn your paper upside down, and then you can paint it directly on without holding your brush into an awkward position. Now I'm left-handed. If you were right-handed, you do it the same way. Here, you would hold your brush like this, right? Okay. So we can go from right to left or from left to right. For me, it's easier to go from left to right. And I'm going to follow that line there. Press. And when I come to where I want to have it narrow, I lift up. Okay. And there's that leaf. The next kind of leaf I want to show you is this one, a little bit rounded at both ends. Again, we do that line for the stem and the center vein, right? The stem and the center vein. Okay. And this time, I'm going to do a little bit of a more pressure here. And that makes the bristles open up wider like that, rather than being pressed together, the tip. And I'm holding my brush a little bit bent instead of straight up and down, but not like this, halfway, so that more bristles will touch the paper. So I press, and I lift. Okay. And then I can turn my paper and press, and I lift. If I want to do this in one stroke or one line, I can do that too. I would not necessarily need to do this center vein. I can just make a stem with the tip of my brush. And then when I'm done doing the tip, I go press, and look at how all my bristles are down. Press and lift. Do that a little bit darker so you can see. Do the tip, then I press, and I lift. Do tip, press, and I lift. And I'm moving my brush a little bit in an arc. Okay. Now the most challenging would be this heart shape. Then I'm going to do in 2 strokes after I paint the center vein. This is called the center vein, right? Do the center vein. You can see here. Center vein. And to get this angle of the leaf, I'm going to do it like an upside down U. Upside down U. And see how all my bristles are starting to touch the paper? And then I'm going to turn, follow that center line, twist my brush around there. Okay. turn my paper upside down. Do that upside down U. Bring my brush back to where the vein is. Right? Keep pressing though. And lift. Okay. And there's a spot here where it didn't touch the paper, and you can see through the paper. You can leave it like that because leaves are have highlights, right? Highlights and shadows. You can consider that a highlight, or if you don't like that, you can just take your brush and go lightly over it to cover it. Okay, and you can switch now to your fine line brush to paint the veins. Typically, Asians do black veins. That's traditional, but if you want it to be more botanical looking, you can keep it green. Just add a little tiny bit of black to your vein color, and that would give you a greenish black. And I'm going to do it the traditional Asian way for you. Okay, so we have a center vein. I'm gonna hold my brush upright. I'm gonna paint here, center vein, and then veins from side to side. There and there. You don't have to paint them all in, right? Just a few. Okay. Now, if you say I want to paint my leaves on a side view like this, okay, let's do that. We'll go back to our regular size brush, and I'm going to paint that line for the vein. And here we're going to bend our brush a little bit more, not upright. All right. I'm going to press and lift. And you want to wait a little bit for your leaf to dry, your paint to dry, but I don't have time to do that, so I'm going to paint right over it. I'm going to try to make my vein a little fast so it doesn't bleed. Okay, so that's a center vein, right? And then in this case, the other veins would go this way. Like that. And there's a side. If you say, oh, I don't want it totally side view, then paint a little bit of that other side there. And you can vein that too to help the viewer know that that's 3/4 view. Okay. So there's our leaf demo. Next, I'll be doing the petals.